Episode 3: Cyrus the Conqueror, from Persia to world power. By the time Cyrus entered the stage of history, Persian power was no longer only a local formation. It had roots in Anshan, it had grown within the shadow of Media, and it had learned from the political world that surrounded it. But now, something different was beginning. Cyrus was no longer merely the ruler of a people on the edge of greater kingdoms. He was becoming the center of a new movement of power. The world around him was still shaped by older kingdoms, older rivalries, and older systems of authority. Media stood as the dominant Iranian power. Lydia controlled wealth and Western influence. Babylon remained one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. Egypt still carried the prestige of deep antiquity. Yet the balance that held these powers together was not permanent. It could shift. And with Cyrus, it did. The first great transformation came through Media. This was not only a military event, it was the movement of authority from one Iranian center to another. Media had already shown that a large Iranian kingdom could exist. It had created a political structure, a field of power, and a model of regional dominance. But Cyrus would not simply inherit this world, he would reshape it. When Persian power rose against the Median order, the result was more than the fall of one ruling house. The center of gravity changed. What had once belonged to Media began to move toward Persia. This is why the rise of Cyrus must be understood as structural change. It was not simply a rebellion, and it was not only a victory. It was the beginning of a new political arrangement in the Iranian world. The Persians, once positioned under the shadow of greater power, now became the force around which that power could be reorganized. And from this point, Cyrus was no longer only building Persian authority, he was preparing to enter the wider world of empires. The Median kingdom had been one of the great powers of its age. It was not a weak opponent, nor an empty structure waiting to collapse. It represented an older and larger order, one that had already shaped the political life of the Iranian plateau. For Cyrus, the Median world was both inheritance and challenge. He did not rise outside of it. He rose from within its environment, knowing its structure, its strengths, and its weaknesses. The Medes had established power over wide territories. They had influence over neighboring peoples. They stood among the great kingdoms that shaped the ancient world. But the strength of such a kingdom depended on balance. It depended on relations between rulers, nobles, peoples, and subordinate powers. When that balance weakened, the system became vulnerable. Cyrus's success against Media was therefore not only a matter of force, it was a matter of timing, understanding, and political transformation. He recognized that power could move. He recognized that the authority of Media could be absorbed, redirected, and reorganized into something new. This is one of the most important moments in the story of Cyrus. He did not erase the Iranian world that existed before him. He changed its center. The Median inheritance gave him scale. Persian identity gave him foundation. Anshan gave him rooted authority. And his own political intelligence allowed him to combine these elements. After this turning point, Cyrus stood in a new position. He was no longer the leader of a rising Persian power. He had become the ruler of a much larger political world. But this new power also brought him into contact with the West, and in the West stood Lydia. Lydia was one of the major kingdoms of the ancient world. It stood in Anatolia, between the Iranian world and the western lands of the Aegean. It was wealthy, powerful, and connected to important routes of exchange. For Cyrus, Lydia represented a different kind of challenge. Media had been part of the Iranian political field. Lydia belonged to the western edge of the great balance of power. To confront Lydia was to move beyond the internal transformation of the Iranian world and enter a wider imperial horizon. The Lydian kingdom was associated with wealth, royal power, and strategic position. Its ruler, Croesus, became one of the famous figures of this period, remembered for the richness and confidence of his kingdom. But wealth and prestige did not guarantee stability. The rise of Cyrus changed the calculations of every surrounding power. Once Media had fallen into the Persian sphere, Lydia could no longer face the same political map. The old balance had been broken. A new force had appeared in the east, and that force was moving. The conflict with Lydia showed that Cyrus's power was not defensive or local. It could project itself across regions. It could challenge wealthy kingdoms far from the original Persian base. It could move from the Iranian plateau toward Anatolia and the Western world. This was a decisive expansion. By overcoming Lydia, Cyrus gained more than territory. He gained access to Western routes, new populations, and a wider field of political influence. Persian power became no longer only Iranian, it became imperial in scope. But again, the importance of Cyrus was not merely that he conquered. Earlier kings had conquered, earlier empires had expanded. The difference was in what followed conquest. Cyrus was building a system capable of containing different lands. The movement westward revealed that Persian power could absorb distance, diversity, and older centers of authority. The Persian world was becoming larger, and yet the West was only one direction. To become a truly great power, Cyrus also had to look east. The eastern Iranian lands were essential to the growth of Cyrus's power. They connected the Persian center to wider regions of the Iranian world and beyond. They were not simply distant margins, they were part of the deeper geography of power. By turning toward the east, Cyrus was not only expanding territory, he was completing the foundation of a new imperial system. The Iranian world was wide. It included mountains, deserts, routes, settlements, tribes, cities, and frontier zones. A ruler who wished to create lasting power could not ignore this space. He had to bring together different regions, not only through conquest, but through connection. This is why the Eastern campaigns matter. They show Cyrus moving from a ruler who had changed the balance in Western Iran to a ruler who was building a broader imperial geography. The East gave depth to the empire. The West gave access and prestige. Together, they transformed Persian power into something far larger than a kingdom. At this stage, Cyrus had already done something extraordinary. He had moved the center of Iranian power from Media to Persia. He had confronted Lydia and opened the western frontier. He had turned toward the east and strengthened the wider foundation of his rule. The result was a new political reality. The ancient world could no longer be understood through the old balance between Media, Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. That balance had been broken. A new structure was forming, and at its center stood Cyrus. But the greatest symbolic moment was still ahead. Babylon remained. It was ancient, prestigious, and deeply important. Many before Cyrus had attacked it. Many had failed to hold it. Babylon had resisted conquerors again and again. For Cyrus, Babylon would become more than another conquest. It would become the test of the new order he was creating. And that is where the next episode begins.